This is episode 6. What are calories? Do they matter? So what are calories? So calories are the most common unit of energy used in nutrition to describe the energy content of food. More precisely, a calorie is the amount of heat energy needed to raise the temperature of 1 gram of water by 1 degree Celsius. Commonly, when we use the word calorie with respect to food, we are really referring to a kilocalorie or kcal, which is 1,000 calories. Instead of saying the whole word kilocalorie, common convention is just to call it a calorie with an uppercase C. How many calories do you burn by biking? Now this is sort of a moderate speed of biking, about 6 to 7 miles per hour, or 9.5 to 11.5 kilometers per hour. So if you did that for about 30 minutes, you would burn 150 calories. This is a light jog at about 2.5 miles per hour or 4 kilometers an hour. You would burn about 150 calories per 30 minutes. Swimming, again, this is a light swim, not going extremely fast, but the way I guess most people would swim. You burn about 150 calories per 30 minutes. These are all approximate values. Obviously, a lot of these things will depend on your height, your weight, your gender, and a number of other factors as well. But just for a point of discussion, these are approximate calories burned. So, how many calories do you need to lose 1 pound of weight? You need to lose 3,500 calories. This is a rough estimation again. This figure has been criticized for a number of reasons, but again, for the point of this discussion, let's stick to this figure just as a rough estimate of how many calories you need to burn in order to lose 1 pound of weight. So, if you were biking and we looked at you losing about 150 calories per 30 minutes, it would take you 24 days of doing this in order to lose 1 pound. If you were jogging, it would take you 24 days of jogging like this to lose 1 pound. If you were swimming, it would take you about 24 days to lose 1 pound. And this is a really, really important point that I want to make, because I have a lot of patients who come to me and they say, you know what, I walk every day for a half an hour or whatever other type of exercise they're doing, and they come to me and they say, you know, I don't really lose a lot of weight. And this is exactly why they're not losing weight. A lot of people don't understand that you need a tremendous amount of exercise in order to lose a single pound. So how many calories do you need to burn? So a chocolate chip muffin has about 490 calories. You'd have to perform the exercises that we talked about for 3.3 days in order to burn off a single chocolate chip muffin. So there's about 475 calories per roasted chicken leg, a leg and thigh. And you'd again have to perform these exercises for 3.2 days just to burn off the one roasted chicken leg. There are about 300 calories in a real fruit smoothie with yogurt. You'd have to perform those exercises for 2 days just to burn off that one smoothie. This is a pet peeve of mine. A lot of my patients are very big into juicing and smoothies. Now, if you're juicing or using smoothies using mainly green vegetables, which I rarely find anyone doing that might be a healthy alternative to a meal. But this type of thing is not low in calories. People assume that it is, but often they're not very low in calories. And a lot of people don't even use this as a meal replacement. They'll use this as a snack in between meals. And various smoothies can have different amounts of calories depending on what you have, but 300 is sort of a rough estimate. So this is the Johnny Rockets Bacon and Cheddar Double Cheeseburger. It has 1,770 calories. So in order to burn off this single burger, you'd have to perform those exercises for almost 12 days. So clearly, diet matters more than exercise when you're talking about weight loss. This is really, 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 really important to understand. So let's talk a little bit about energy expenditure. So BMR, the basal metabolic rate, is the amount of energy used when the body is at rest. So this accounts for about 60 to 80% of your total energy expenditure. Now the energy used to break down food, so the metabolism and digestion of food, is about 10% of your total energy expenditure. And lastly, the energy used in physical activity accounts for about 10 to 30% of your total energy expenditure. Exercise. So research has shown people may increase food intake after exercise. They may think they burned off a lot of calories. People often overestimate how much energy exercise burns. They might have been hungrier after the exercise. And you have to think that a single slice of pizza or a cafe mocha can undo the benefit of an hour's workout. So there are also compensatory behaviors that people can engage in after exercise. People may slow down after a workout. They may decide to lie down for a rest. They may fidget less because they're tired, or take the elevator instead of stairs. So these are all things that work against us when we exercise. Now, I'm not saying that exercise is not important. Exercise is extremely important in terms of general health. So in order to be healthier, you want to exercise more. There are numerous benefits to exercise that I won't get into. I'm sure you've heard of many, many of them, and most of them are probably true. That being said, exercise is not the best tool in order to lose weight. It should be part of your program as part of your general health, but it shouldn't be the main focus when you're trying to lose weight. As we've seen, the calories are much more important in the food that we consume. So how are calories measured? So the energy content of food was traditionally measured using bomb calorimetry. A burger may be placed into a metal vessel called a bomb, which is filled with oxygen and placed inside of a container where it's surrounded by water. The food sample is ignited by a current of electricity. The water chamber absorbs the heat that is released as the food sample burns. A thermometer measures the rise in temperature of the water. Since a calorie raises the temperature of 1 kilogram, which is 1 liter of water, by 1 degree Celsius, or for a small calorie, 1 gram of water by 1 degree Celsius, the calorie count is found by calculating the change in temperature of the water multiplied by the volume of water. Today we use the Atwater system, or the 494 system, from the 1800 chemist Wilbur Atwater. He determined the average number of calories in 3 main sources of energy in food. This is what we call the macronutrients. Fat, carbohydrates, and protein are the 3 macronutrients. He found that fats contain 9 calories per gram, and carbs and proteins contain 4 calories per gram. The Atwater system is how calorie values on food labels are determined today. The Atwater system corrects for losses in energy in the form of urine or feces, but it does not account for how absorption varies based on the type of food or variations in how each individual will process that food. The FDA allows for a 20% margin of error for nutrients listed on a food label, including calories, the FDA being the Food and Drug Administration. Calories in, calories out hypothesis. So this is a hypothesis that has been criticized by some people for reasons that we will discuss. So let's talk firstly about what it is. Calories in are the calories that you receive from the foods that you eat. Calories out are the calories you burn from basic metabolism, digestion, and exercise. The first law of thermodynamics states that energy cannot be created or destroyed. So this is a fundamental property of physics, and no one can violate this law of physics. So ultimately, if you are at a calorie deficit, meaning that you are consuming less calories than you are expending, it is impossible not to lose weight. That can't be contested because that's a law of physics. Now, why it's not that simple is that there are different people who have different rates of metabolism. That's for certain. There are definitely differences in the way that people metabolize and people digest food. That's not controversial. There are definitely differences from one person to another. That being said, if your energy expenditure is, let's say, 2,500 calories, but you are only consuming 2,000 calories, you absolutely have to lose weight because it's just physics. Where's the extra 500 calories coming from? It has to be coming from your storage, either your fat storage or a glycogen storage. It has to happen. You have to lose weight. So if someone believes that they are not losing weight despite restricting calories, that means that they are not expending enough calories compared to the amount of consumption that they have. If you balance these two values, you have to lose weight. Period. Now, the problem is that it does become difficult to estimate exactly how many calories you consume unless you're weighing out your food, unless you're carefully reading nutrition labels, unless you're calculating carefully the amount of exercise that you're doing. It's very hard, and most of the time a lot of these numbers have to be approximations. But if you understand the concept that you have to have less calories going in than are coming out, then you know how to lose weight. So that's the controversy of the calories in, calories out hypothesis. And, another note of how it's not that simple. There is a disorder, for example, called progressive lipodystrophy. And what it is this is an individual, it's a rare condition. This is an individual where below the waist they look overweight and they carry a lot of excess fat. Above the waist, they are quite lean. Now think about that for a second. They have one mouth, one digestive system. So anything that goes through their mouth is being consumed by that individual as a whole. So how is their upper body lean and their lower body not lean? It just shows that metabolism is extremely important, and the way the body and the body's cells process food and calories is important. But at the end of the day, even a person with that type of a condition, if they're burning 2,500 calories a day and they're only consuming 2,000 calories a day, they have to lose weight. So let's talk about the thermic effect of foods. Digestion of protein is less efficient than for carbs or fat. Protein and carbs both contain 4 calories per gram. The thermic effect of food is a measure of how much different foods increase energy expenditure due to the energy required to digest, absorb, and metabolize the nutrients. Protein requires much more energy to metabolize than fat and carbs. Now, we'll talk about food effects on satiety. Satiety being the feeling of fullness, and we talked about this in a lot more detail on a previous episode. Now, protein is the most filling macronutrient. The 2 main simple sugars are glucose and fructose. So gram for gram, they provide the same number of calories. But research shows that fructose leads to higher ghrelin levels, the hunger hormone, than glucose, leading people to eat more. So you can see how foods, even though they might have the same amount of calories from one to another, there are other important considerations like how does that affect your overall feeling of fullness or satiety, and can that predispose you to eating more or less for another meal? So these are all important considerations. Another one that we're going to talk about here is the glycemic index and glycemic load. So glycemic index is a measure of how quickly food raises blood sugar. So these 2 values, glycemic index and glycemic load, are especially important for people with diabetes. So glycemic load is a calculation where you take the glycemic index and times it by the net carbohydrate content per portion of the food that you're eating. So net carbohydrate is where you subtract the total carbohydrates by the amount of fiber which doesn't get absorbed to give you the net amount of carbohydrate that the body will actually metabolize. Multiply that by the glycemic index and then divide the entire thing by 100 to give you the glycemic load. It's a measure of the quantity and quality of the carbohydrates that are being consumed. So these 2 are very important considerations for people with diabetes that, again, is not going to be captured by the amount of calories that are present in any particular food.